I thought that I'd get a little creative, and instead of writing everything out, which can sometimes be cumbersome for both me to type and for you to read, I thought it might be best to actually show you on my screen some of the things and suggestions that I would have for you. First off, just want to say what a fantastic job I think both of you have done. I'm very, very impressed, and I'm very grateful to be working with you. What I'd like to do, I've started filling out some of the inputs of our calculator, and the general comments I'm going to leave simply in the text format. But as it relates directly to the franchise fee portion, in going through every single screen, I actually have some suggestions and some changes. Okay, I have selected earlier, so if you can see my screen, I have selected in the company financial profile. Okay, the target company currently pays franchise fees, calculated as a percentage of GCI. And just to show you that calculated here is misspelled. It should be CALCULATED. Just a heads up. I have selected a number 2. I am calculating EBITDA for a company that I wish to acquire, and I've selected yes. I'm going to hit continue, and I've put in my inputs, and then I'm going to hit continue again, and I just put in a very quick input. On this particular screen, I'm going to select the very first option. The buyer currently pays franchise fees calculated as a percentage of GCI, and this screen comes up. Just a few quick things to point out. When I enter in information, and whatever that might be, okay, I'll put a franchise fee percentage of 6%. You see here that I have to physically click on the net franchise fees to broker before it calculates any type of difference. And I'm going to put in $5,000 in additional fees, or excuse me, $50,000. You see here that until I entered the $50,000, this didn't calculate. I then have to click on it, and it will calculate. Okay, and then if I were to go through the example, let's say this person pays 5.5%. There is the difference, and this, by the way, should be negative instead of just a 0.5. Okay, we'll say that this broker only paid $2,500 or $25,000, and once again I have to physically click, and this does not calculate at all. Okay, one of the suggestions that I have is to actually change this format. And what I've done is I've created an Excel spreadsheet for you that I'm going to be setting in conjunction with this video. And so I'll go ahead and click there now to show you what I'm talking about. So for example, from a GCI based calculation, I would prefer to set up a spreadsheet with these exact inputs. You will notice that there are some additional inputs that Curtis or I did not originally include. However, this makes a lot more sense. What you'll also see, and this may be difficult to see in my screen, but around each subset of information is actually a different color box, okay, so that it's very subtle, but at the same point in time it groups the information together, which is a lot easier to read. So I grouped this together where I have the target company and the buyer as a side-by-side comparison instead of one on top of the other. And then I've simulated the input. So for example, the last 12 months of GCI, I've created white boxes just as you have on the calculator. Okay, and you'll also notice that the boxes are a little more narrow, which I like. We should allow for maybe one more decimal place here. Not decimal, but one more digit place. Okay, I've added franchise fee percentage, additional fee percentage, where we calculate the gross franchise fees. I've just simply added these two, multiplied that by that amount, and I've gotten this. Here I'm adding in my company average agent split, and what I'm doing here, the calculation, you can see that I've taken this gross franchise fee multiplied by 1 minus the percent to give me the net percent. Okay. These inputs down here for the gross commission income are the GCI based. What I'd like to do is this. I'd like to add these in this exact format. All of these are non-mandatory fields, and the user may wish or not wish to enter if he or she chooses. But for an example, total agent count and end evaluation period, monthly franchise fee per agent, and annual franchise fee per agent. When I calculate the subtotal, notice that it just simply has a line underneath it, and it's not in a box. And that's really the suggestion that I have, is that, and it might be easier for you, that instead of making it into a physical box that is confusing to some as to whether or not they should put an amount, whether or not they click it, just have a simple line where it will appear. And hopefully that makes it easier on you as well. But this is calculated by taking the total agent count multiplied by the monthly franchise fee multiplied by 12, representing 12 months, and then that's added to the total agent count multiplied by the annual fee. Okay. Similarly, the total office count at the end of valuation period, I have 2, the monthly franchise fee per office, and then the annual franchise fee per office, and this subtotal is calculated in a very similar fashion. What we'd also like to do is add buttons. So add additional monthly fees, add additional annual fees, and add miscellaneous. On the Excel spreadsheet, I've just simply done it where I've grouped it so that you can see. So I have 2 additional monthly fees with the subtotal. Notice the line. I have 2 additional annual fees and 2 additional miscellaneous. Bear in mind that the monthly fees, this subtotal, okay, is the total of these 2 boxes here multiplied by 12 to represent the 12 months. And I'm going to go back and collapse those. Okay. For the buyer side, I recommend a visually separate box. It doesn't have to be exactly like this. You know, I have just a line to designate. These are the exact items that we'd like. Okay. And notice that I don't have the last 12 months of GCI. What I've done here is I've done the franchise fee percentage of GCI. That's representative of the buyer. The additional fee. And then this here is the percentage difference. Notice, for example, that if I enter in we'll do 5%. Notice that this here is now negative, and that's very important that that shows up as a negative percentage. Okay. So the adjusted gross franchise fee difference, and let me change that real quick. The adjusted gross franchise fee difference now is coming up as a negative number because what I've done is I've taken this negative 1.5% and I've multiplied it by the last 12 months of GCI. So it's only showing me the difference. That way they don't have to be confused. Underneath the target company average split under the buyer, that's similar to this box over here, okay? And then the adjusted difference of the target company, the way that I calculate that, okay, is, the way that I calculate this is that I'm taking this number here multiplied by 1 minus this new percentage, and that will give me a difference. Notice also that there's a new feature. So for example, this says add back. Okay, if it's 0, which it's not set up that way in Excel, it's the one thing, you know, that's not accurate, but if it's 0 it shouldn't say anything. But if it is a negative number, it should be seen as an add back. If it were to be a positive number, it should show negative adjustment. Okay? And that will still be a negative adjustment. Oh. That was the same number. Okay. The next item, additional monthly fees. Okay. what I'm doing here is I'm only calculating the difference. So this total agent count over here remains the same. The $130 is the monthly franchise fee per agent of the buyer. And so I'm multiplying that by this number here, multiplied by 12. And then the annual franchise fee is multiply this number here by 12 to get that total. And it is the difference, and it's the same thing whether the negative or the positive adjustment. Okay, and so on and so forth. I'm not going to go through each example. One of the things, so see how this says automatically add back? That's a problem in Excel. There should be add additional monthly fees here as well as buttons. Okay, and if you were to see, if I were to expand all of these, you would see that they click through. Finally, what I'm doing here is total franchise fee allocation difference to target company. This is simply the sum of this number and this number. And on purpose, I want to keep it whether it be in positive or negative format. Okay? And then the reason that I included this, total to be included in adjusted EBITDA, it is the exact opposite of this number. And the reason that I did that is because if this is a negative number and you were simply to add that to the EBITDA, it would actually subtract it. And hopefully that makes sense. So what I've done here is, because this is a negative number, we actually have to increase it. And so in order for the final EBITDA calculation, I'm simply going to add this total to be included. And it will show as increased EBITDA, or if it were a positive number, meaning this, then it would show as decrease EBITDA. So you would either increase it or decrease it by the opposite of that. Hopefully that makes sense. I'll do another video for the other inputs that I have. And once again, greatly appreciate your help.